Hey, and welcome to today in the news on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chiefly. We'll be giving the front pages of the papers, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with will invade Niger if diplomacy fails, and that's coming from ECOWAS. The writer says past deployment in Sierra Leone, Liberia, others example of readiness. Germany backs EU sanction against the military junta. WFP calls for free flow of aid amid the ongoing crisis. 3 officers, 22 soldiers killed in Niger ambush crash. That's come from DHQ. You can read that on page 7. For the story showing at Edwin Clark's book launch, you can see more on page 3. Subsidy removal. Federal government shocked over high food transportation costs. Right, it says approves 5 billion naira, 5 trucks of rice to each state. Mandates NEMA to distribute food items to states sharing borders with Niger. Says refugee from Niger Republic flood Nigeria. Only 2 billion naira released yet, says Governor Sani. On page 14, flood were burdened by over 6,000 IDPs, Niger government. Over 1,680 Nigerian school children kidnapped since Chibok incident. That's coming from SCI. You can see that on page 9. Club owners tax new sport minister, Senator Eno, on football development. You can see that on page 29. Stories above. Transcorp acquires a 60% stake in Abuja Disco. On page 3, subsidy removal, no instant solution to Nigeria's problems. That's coming from President TINUBU. On page 3, last year on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, we have EMEFIELE, federal government showing sign of disobeying court orders, and that's coming from Judge. The writer says the court strikes out firearm possession charge, and that's all we can take on Vanguard. Let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with reign of yesterday's men, multiple ex-governors turned godfathers, unsettled governors in state. APC, NNPP trade blames over attempts to bribe election tribunal. Naira gains about 15% as dealers dump dollar counts losses. Stories above. ECOWAS defense chiefs declare readiness to invade Niger. Lobbyists storm APC secretariat, begs Ganduje for appointments. Lastly, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, relief as AIU clears Amusan to participate at World Championship. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with states awash with 180 billion naira subsidy paying relief cash. Right, it says the federal government 5 billion naira per state fund for immediate use to cushion high food fertilizer prices. NEC OK's transfer of World Bank's $800 million to the poor. Talks with Labour to go on. Now, the highlighter, state got 2 billion naira of previous 5 billion naira. States that border Niger Republic to get federal government support. States to buy 100,000 bags of rice, 40,000 bags of maize, 5 trucks of rice received earlier. Review of social register ongoing. And we have EMEFIELE charged with fraud, abuse of office orders in Abuja. Arms possession suits struck out in Lagos. DHQ, 3 officers, 3 soldiers died in Niger ambush, NAF jet crash. Experts, AK-47 can't shoot down jets. Stories above, Toby Amusan cleared for World Championships. Niger ECOWAS activates standby force, defense chief in Ghana. And last year on the front page of the Nation, Ganduje leads Uzodinma Okocha to Aso Villa. Alright, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Labour faults 180 billion naira palliatives, says the governors will frustrate program. Right, they say state to get 180 trucks of rice. NLC TUC worry politicians will hoard materials. NEC committee to meet Labour over subsidy relief. TINUBU appeals to Nigerians. And of course, the stories below. Family faults release of Lagos chief suspected killer. Rains disrupting Lagos Ibadan expressway construction. That's come from federal government. Stories above. Federal government begins the ministers designate documentation Saturday. Banditry, North Central, Northwest plunge into 902 billion naira debt. Poor revenue persists. Low IGR linked to insecurity. 60% of affected states lack FDIs. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have a military months 25 soldiers killed in Niger, hunt bandits, and that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining me still today in the news on Vanguard Life, I am Precious Chukudi. And joining me to talk about some stories this morning is our correspondent, John Bosco Agbakuru. He's going to be telling us more about the palliative execution, the fuel subsidy removal. Good morning, John Bosco. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning for having me.
Yes. All right. Tell us more about the NEC meeting. Them approving 5 billion naira grant to 36 states, as well as 5 trucks of rice to each state as palliatives.
Okay, yesterday the National Economic Council, held its meeting. National Economic Council is chaired by the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima. So after the meeting, some of the governors briefed the State House correspondent, and among the governors that briefed was the governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum. So, he said that at the meeting, the NEC expressed surprise over increased food item and transportation in the country as a result of, subsidy removal. You know that since the federal government, after of the inauguration of President Bola TINUBU on May 29 at Eagle Square, he since announced that subsidy is gone. It has been, having a big effect on Nigerians. And to cushion the effect, the Borno State governor, said that the federal government last week released 5 trucks of rice, to each state, to cushion the effect of the subsidy. These 5 trucks will serve as the palliative, the states. He also said that the federal government approved a sum of 5 billion, to be given to each state to procure 100,000 bags of rice and the 40,000 bags of, grain or maize, to also help the people to cushion the effect. Then she said, this money, the 48%, will be paid back within 20 months. They also the tech expressed some concern also over the situation in the country, especially those Nigerians living sharing borders with the Niger Republic that is having political crisis, and then so it directed National Emergency Management Agency MEMA, procure and make available some food items to those people because there is an influx of refugees, from the troubled Niger Republic.
All right. The question on Nigerians' mind now is, what is the sharing formula actually?
I think as the thing has been sent to various states, it is left for the states, to devise their own sharing formula. But it's something that has to do with cash transfer. I think that one has to carry for a while because the governors, for instance, for governors Tukuma Suludo of Anambra State, say that they are reviewing the social register, which the government of, the previous administration used to send the cash transfer to people. Even though the governor of Kaduna State, Obasani, raised the alarm that 60% of the rural dwellers in his place is not benefit from the cash transfer. So what I think they are trying to do now is to review the social register so that they know how possible it will be for people who really need this palliative, basis. But within the 5 billion, the government approved. The Kaduna State governor also said that what has been released to them is 2 billion.
Okay, another thing again that is really worrisome is also we saw what happened during COVID-19 palliatives and all. Nigerians are wondering, where we had some warehouse that was stocked with food and some of those foods were even expired and it didn't get to the right people. What will be the situation with this one exactly?
I think this is the new administration, and they have to learn from the experience of the past administration. I think it is now incumbent upon the state governors, to ensure that they make adequate security. They fortify the areas where all these things will be kept, so that hoodlums or people, will not come and carry them away. Besides, like what you rightly said, during the COVID-19, there was this allegation that some of those materials that were meant for the people were really sold by privileged individuals who got hold of them. But I'm thinking now that with this administration and seeing what people are passing through, I'm thinking that they will, provide a conducive place, a well-fortified place that to make sure that people or hoodlums or didn't come there to commit trouble or take away all these items.
Okay, in your own view, do you think this 5 billion naira that will be shared across states, as well as the rice truck of rice, do you think is a step in the right direction, or we deserve more than what is being disbursed?
They always say that a journey of 100 kilometers starts with one step, and I think it is a good thing that something is happening. But then again, going by the population of this country and going by the fact that statistics have it that over 130 million Nigerians, are poor. Though it may not, achieve the desired effect, but I think the government has to start from somewhere. And if eventually it is well utilized for the people that are meant to benefit from it, get it, I think it will go a long way.
What of the $800 million loan? Does the council really has anything to say about that too?
Yeah, it was discussed. That $800 million loan was secured by the previous administration. But what the National Economic Council resolved that yesterday was that the money should still be used based on the reason it was gotten, and that they are making sure that it must serve the purpose in which it was gotten.
All right, thank you so much, John Bosco, for that report.
Thank you for having me.
All right, moving on. Let's take this story. We invade Niger if diplomacy fails, and that's coming from ECOWAS. Now, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said yesterday in Accra, Ghana, that it will not hesitate to invade Niger Republic if all efforts to reverse the coup in the country fails. This came as the German government said in its support of sanctions imposed on the military junta in the country by the European Union (EU). It will be recalled that the ECOWAS heads of state and government had at the second extraordinary summit in Abuja last week activated a standing forward should the junta in Niger refuse to restore to power ousted president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. The threat came as defense chiefs of member states met in the Ghanaian capital to strategize on the next line of action on Niger and discuss details of the standby force. The meeting continues today. Let no one be in doubt that if everything else fails, the valiant forces of West Africa are ready to answer by the call. By all means available, constitutional orders will be restored in the country, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, said. He listed past ECOWAS deployments in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and elsewhere as example of readiness for military action. Musa rejected the accusation that ECOWAS is being manipulated by France or any other outside power. What they forget is that ECOWAS is a rules-based organization. We have our protocols, we have our norms, and we are ready to protect them. That's why the heads of state are saying, if push comes to shove, we're going into Niger with our own contingent, own equipment, and our own resources to make sure we restore constitutional order. If other democracy-loving partners want to support us. On to our next story, where of course we're still talking about subsidy removal and no instant solution to Nigeria's problem, and that's what the president is saying. President Bola TINUBU was brutally frank, telling Nigerians that there are no instant solution to the country's raging problem, and reiterated his appeal to them to bear with the country in view of the pains occasioned by the removal of petroleum subsidy. He, however, assured that at the end of today's suffering, tomorrow will be better. He spoke in Abuja at the unveiling of Brutally Frank, a 688-page autobiography of former Federal Commissioner for Information and South-South leader Chief Edwin Clark. President Bola TINUBU said that the solution to Nigeria's problem cannot be like instant coffee, noting that what the country was going through is akin to the pain of childbirth. He expressed optimism that the palliative being rolled out by the federal government would help to soften the hardship and trauma. The 25-chapter book revolved around the journey of Clark as a classroom teacher, commissioner, minister, senator, and national activist spanning over 7 decades. All right, that's all we can take on the stories this morning. Let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mrs. is speaking this morning. She says, my uncle is your in-law, so show some respect. He only asked you for 300,000 naira, and he was only joking when he said he would take back his niece if you don't give him the money. And Mr. replies and says, I was also joking when I said he couldn't. You know, talking about family feuds and all that. I know Mr. and Mrs. will always find a way to sort out your problems. All right, that's all we can take today. Today is Friday. Ensure you have a fantastic time. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out today's stories, go to our website, www.vanguardndia.com, to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.